and paid the vendors, but not us.
No way.
Hello?
Yes.
Jeff, you're making the point, if you're mentioned in the trust, they must provide the trust to you.
That's right. Tyson, is that essentially what your attorney said to you?
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's very strange.
Let me ask you, it is strange, Jeff, because, this is a real rich guy, Sam Simon, and he had a lot of different monies going to many different places. And no offense to Tyson, but why would you let one guy who's only involved in one sliver of this man's life, and when you look at the totality of his contributions and of the monies, the law actually provides for this one person to see all of it? I mean, let's take Tyson out of it. I'll give you a scenario. What if he had a housekeeper who was there for 30 years with him, and he just left her, I don't know, he left her $20,000 or whatever it is. Does she literally get to look at the whole trust?
Well, the code section says that the beneficiary is entitled to the material terms of the trust. And in my mind, and I think in the minds of a lot of attorneys, material terms of the trust is just not limited to the terms as relating to the particular beneficiary. It relates to the whole document. And somebody may not know what rights they have or don't have until they see their gift or bequest in the trust as juxtaposed against the entire body of the trust.
Oh, that's how big fights start.
Informed decision about whether or not their interests are being honored, the beneficiary's interest.
And talks about a cancer diagnosis anyway.
Yeah, well, and just another tangent. My dad taught me this business. My dad was the king of estate planning in Los Angeles, and one thing he said was the last thing you want to do for your family is to die well. He used that when Michael Landon died. When Michael Landon died, he had some cancerous disease, and when he died, he was surrounded by his entire family, and present wife, former wives, all children that he had, and he was upbeat until the end. Obviously, Sam didn't have as many family members as Michael Landon, but it sounds like he lived up to that standard, that he died well. He tried to keep everybody's spirits up, notwithstanding the condition that he was in. To me, that's a real mitzvah. That's the last great lesson that you leave to your family.
It's amazing.
Is to Tyson and Alice, I got to tell you, I'm not the first person to tell you this. There's the real world and the legal world. In the real world, Julie Miller would be doing the right thing because she knows firsthand what Sam's commitment was to Columbo and Columbo's after-death care, meaning after Sam's death. And she would do the right thing in terms of that. The legal world says that unless there's something that requires her to use at the minimum some discretion to decide what funds to pay you for Columbo's care, there is nothing pressing upon her to give you any money. As a matter of fact, her lawyer would probably take the position, listen, Julie is very concerned about Columbo, and she wants to do the right thing. She would love to give money from the trust to Tyson and Allison for Columbo's training. But you know what? There are other beneficiaries of this trust, and for every dollar from the trust that goes for Columbo's care, that's money that doesn't go to the rightful beneficiaries, which apparently are some animal charities or what have you.
But not Sam's son, who's sick.
Well, I think no. You know what?
But do you understand my point?
Yeah, I do understand your point.
And I think that Julie could come to you and say, yes, Tyson, I'm having coffee with you, and you know what, I would love to do this, but my lawyer said, no way, because if I do, then that would be considered a breach of trust against the remainder beneficiaries, and that I could get sued. So, from a legal position, I understand her point. From a practical position, well, like I said, everybody in the world knows what Sam's intentions were, but somehow it just did not find its way to being reduced in the trust.
Well, and that's, I think, no disrespect to every single charity mentioned in his trust, but I would say that before any of those were to get money, that he would have his dog taken care of, Columbo taken care of.
Well, I think for me, the most important thing, just going through this, and it's been draining on our family, is that we were fine with everything. They were paying us just for the year. Until we asked for his legal right of that trust, that's when everything stopped. And
but what would you have done after a year?
We would have raised money. We don't raise money. We don't know.
Or continue to bill them by the month or whatever.
Yeah,
for the care.
We were
She's
just
been paying for all that
the point
time
of
anyway.
it is that none of this was a problem until we asked for what was our legal right just to see the trust. And then that's when all this went into a tailspin. And then she's like, we're demanding. We never demanded anything.
Why don't you read the email?
I mean, I have emails that prove to say having conversations back and forth.
If I'm Julie Miller's attorney,
of course,
here's what I'm going to say about that particular point. We've already concluded that there is no obligation on the trustee to pay from the trust estate any funds for the care and maintenance of Columbo. Okay, but it seems then kind of strange that there would be any funds available for Columbo because apparently Julie Miller was paying for some of the veterinarian and
so
whatnot.
I'm not crazy here. I'm just sitting here scratching my head.
Let me finish my point. What her lawyer would say is that after a person who sets up a trust dies, there is a period of administration that takes place before distribution of the trust estate materializes. So apparently the beneficiaries are whoever they are. But during that period of administration, the trustee's duties are to inventory the assets, marshal the assets, preserve them, make them productive, and use the trust estate for the preservation of the trust assets. Well, Columbo could be considered an asset of the trust. When we do trusts, a trust is like a bucket that comes along with a set of instructions. These instructions say that everything that I own is considered part of my trust estate, and that includes all personal property. And yes, dogs are our family, pets are our family, but they're still under the law considered personal property. So there's a provision in the Sam Simon Trust that says that Columbo is personal property, and the personal property is part of the trust. So it is the trustee's duty and obligation to maintain and preserve trust property pending its distribution. So during this year of administration, the trustee is allowed to expend funds for Columbo's maintenance.
Sure, because that's maintaining the trust.
It's maintaining the trust estate.
The dog dies without the maintenance.
So now that it's been, December 8th will be 9 months, apparently, it's 9 months since his death. That's when the estate tax return is due, and there's usually you can get a 6-month extension automatically, which I assume they're going to take in this case. But so during that period of time, that would be considered a reasonable time, the 9 months, to say, okay, we have maintained this trust asset, and if we cut off the funds, well, then that's because there's no more funds that the trust has to expend relating to the maintenance of Columbo, because Columbo is all well and situated right now. So that's the justification for them to say, yes, we did pay money, but now we're not. And so that the remaining beneficiaries of the trust, the charities and whoever, they can't come back to Julie. They can't come back to her and say, oh, you shouldn't have spent money on the few bucks that you did for Columbo's care, because the response would be, yes, I can't. Yes, it was fine because that was for purposes of administration of a portion of the trust estate. This is why people hate lawyers. And I get it,
me too. I get it.
Because here it is. Like I said, you're talking about the real world versus the legal world. In the real world, absolutely, Tyson and Allison are correct. Do the right thing. Just do the right thing and square it away with the trust beneficiaries, because if these trust beneficiaries are animal charities, they should have no problem with this deviation from...
Get how the whole thing went down.
Mark, the big mistake here was in the writing of the trust document, because it seems to me that it did not incorporate the true wish of Sam Simon to come up with an arrangement, a legally allowed pet trust, in order to be an effective tool to provide funds for the care and comfort of Columbo for the rest of Columbo's life.
And I guess what's so confounding to me about that is that with a trust that's so complex and so maximizes all this money to all of these different charities, and just knowing Sam's wishes, that they would leave that one detail out, that one thing would get into the outfield on them.
It's baffling.
Seems pretty chicken to me.
Yeah.
Well, he was sort of, he was not himself. So a lot of times what we lawyers do is we plug some holes for the clients who are in the dying stage of life, and then we review that with the clients, and they say, sure, that's fine. But, lawyers are not soothsayers. They don't have the full spectrum of what the client would want or not want without asking the right questions. And in this case, it seems to me that this aspect of this trust, the care for Columbo post-death, was not thought of, was overlooked. Sometimes when we have these complex trusts and we're so focused on the complexities and all the tax stuff and all the things that have to be in there in order for it to be a terrific plan that's going to minimize estate taxes and protect the assets.
You missed the thing that sit in the living room.
Yeah, your son.
Yeah.
And it's easy to overlook the simple stuff. Did that happen here? Maybe. I don't want to second guess, but there's got to be some reason why Sam's intentions were not memorialized in the document.
Lastly, I would just say that there were also in that Hollywood Reporter piece, and then it was picked up, there were some questions as to whether or not the charities that he was so active with, I mentioned them earlier, were going to be